Hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Sexual Selection in the Age of Birth Control. My name is Arshia.
I'm Grafate.
I'm Raminder.
And I'm Jacob. Today, we're tackling something that's kind of mind-blowing. The idea that hormonal birth control could be influencing who people are attracted to.
That is truly an interesting topic.
Hey guys, before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that we're recording on traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We recognize and respect the history, culture, and contributions of the indigenous people on this land. This artwork right here is by Bernard Kerrigan that we are standing in front of.
Thank you, Grafate, for that acknowledgement. So let's address the elephant in the room. We're four guys here. We obviously don't use birth control, but we wanted to dive into research and talk to people who do to better understand how this stuff works and why it matters.
Yeah, I mean, we're not here to speak over anyone's experience. It's just bring attention to something I think more people, especially guys, should know about.
Let's be real. This isn't something most of us were taught in health class or even heard about. But it turns out hormones can mess with way more than just your biology. It can mess with chemistry, specifically romantic chemistry.
Hey, it's a clever one.
So grab your headphones, get comfy, and let's get into it. Okay, first things first. What is sexual selection?
Good question.
It's this idea from evolutionary biology that some traits make people more likely to attract a mate. These things can include a strong jawline, a deep voice, or even body scent.
It's like the science version of a dating app. I mean, certain traits stand out, not just because they're attractive, but because they signal something deeper, like strength, fertility, or stability.
And here's a twist. Human preferences for those traits aren't static. They can change depending on hormonal fluctuations throughout the menstrual cycle.
Which is where hormonal birth control comes in. It alters those natural cycles. And that could also be changing what or who someone finds attractive. To give a quick overview for anyone unfamiliar, the menstrual cycle is typically about 28 days and is driven by shifting hormonal levels. Around the middle of the cycle, during ovulation, estrogen peaks and the body is at its most fertile phase. Research shows that during this phase, people may be more attracted to traits like masculinity and dominance. After ovulation, hormonal levels change again and preferences shift. Hormonal birth control flattens these natural hormonal fluctuations, which might also affect who someone finds attractive. And that's what we're going to be exploring in this episode.
So let's say someone's not on birth control. During peak fertility, they might be more into traditionally masculine traits. Think about deep voices, stronger features, and assertive energy.
That's interesting to say because on hormonal birth control, the hormones actually stay steady. So some of those cyclical shifts in attraction don't really happen. Some research says that people on the pill might prefer more stable and nurturing traits instead.
That's wild to think about. So you're saying that you could literally be into two different types of people depending on whether or not you're on birth control?
Basically.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily bad. It's just something most people aren't even aware of.
Exactly. Imagine being in a relationship, going off the pill, and suddenly realizing you're not as into your partner as you were before. That's real. And it's been reported in the actual studies.
That's crazy, man. One of the studies we looked at was by Alvarin and Luma in 2010. They found that hormonal contraceptives can affect mate preferences, basically changing what people look for in a partner, what we've been talking about this whole time.
Then there's a study from Roberts and his team from 2012.
I heard about that one.
It showed that women who met their partners while on the pill were sometimes less satisfied in the relationship after stopping it. Like attraction literally changed.
Now, not every study agrees on how major the shift is, but even a small change could mean a lot in a long-term relationship.
And that's what got us thinking. How many people even knew about this? Like, have these conversations ever came up in your group chats? Probably not.
No.
Definitely not in mine. Which is why we decided to speak with someone who could break it down from a clinical perspective.
We reached out to an OBGYN who works closely with patients using hormonal birth control.
We asked about what she's seen in practice, if these shifts in attractions come up in her appointments, and what she thinks of the research.
Here's that interview. Joining us, could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about your background in obstetrics and gynecology?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Manhaz Babaei, a practicing obstetrician and gynecologist since 2002 in Iran. And over the past 2 decades, I have worked closely with women in all ages. Pregnancy, reproductive age, menopausal age. I should say I'm passionate about bridging the gap between medical science and everyday understanding. And I should say, I'm glad we are going to have this conversation. It's an important one.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, it's very important bridging that
Yeah.
gap. In your experience, how often do patients consider the psychological or behavioral effects of birth control beyond just its physical purpose?
So, in my clinical practice, most patients initially focus on the physical aspects of birth control. Something like preventing pregnancy, regulating their cycle, and reducing menstrual pain. But in recent years, I have seen a growing awareness and also curiosity around the physiological and behavioral aspects of OCPs or all contraceptions method. Some patients have concern about mood changes or lowered libido and emotional disconnect between them. And these effects do not happen for everyone, but they are real. It means they are happen for some people. And it's important to include them in our counseling. So I always consider both physical and emotional responses when discussing contraception options for people.
It's great to hear that this shift has happened where both physical and behavioral is starting to be considered by both patients and doctors. It's a great point. From a hormonal standpoint, how does the birth control pill alter the body's natural cycle? And what changes occur in terms of estrogen and progesterone?
So that's a great question because to understand how birth control pills work, we should understand first our natural menstrual cycle. So we have an axis in our body. It's axis named hypothalamus, pituitary, and ovaries axis. So GnRH from hypothalamus comes to affect on pituitary gland, and then FSH and LH secrete from that part of hypophyse, and then they go to affect on to have effect on I mean ovaries. So this is a normal cycle, and it lead to develop a follicle, and ovulation happen after that. So in a cycle, estrogen rise in the first half of the cycle, peaking just before ovulation. Uh, and after that, progesterone take over in the second half um, uh, of the cycle. So they prepare the uterus for a normal pregnancy. So combined contraceptions, OCPs, contain synthetic estrogen and progestin. They suppress the release of FSH and LH from hypophyse or pituitary gland, and so they affect on normal fluctuation of the hormones in the body, and they made a steady hormone in the body, and we don't have that fluctuation of the hormones in the body. So This situation is something like early pregnancy, something like hormones in early pregnancy.
There are some research suggesting that hormonal birth control might affect who we're attracted to, and that's kind of what we're trying to discuss today. So, have you come across this in clinical practice or heard patients talk about how changes in their preferences or relationships before?
I should say yes, on occasion. While many people don't associate these changes in their contraceptive method, others may notice them and talk about during follow-up visits. Studies have shown that hormonal contraceptives can influence olfactory perception and emotional processing, and even how facial features are perceived. But in my opinion, more research is still needed.
I couldn't agree more. Some studies show that women on the pill might choose partners differently than they would off the pill, potentially preferring less masculine or more stable traits. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that from both a clinical and evolutionary perspective?
So, from an evolutionary perspective, it's been proposed that women may have different preferences across the menstrual cycle, normal menstrual cycle, being more drawn into masculine or genetically diverse trait. Um, it happened during the fertile window. So hormonal contraceptives suppress ovulation and flatten these hormonal shifts, which may in turn influence partner
I
preferences.
think hormonal birth control could influence relationship satisfaction in the long term, especially if someone starts or stops the pill after entering a relationship.
Yes, I do think it can. There is evidence that hormonal contraceptives may influence aspects of relationship satisfaction, since hormones can affect everything from emotional regulation, sexual desire, and partner preferences. So, any significant hormone shift may change how someone feels within a relationship. But it's important to note that these effects vary widely. Many people transition on and off hormonal methods without any noticeable change. So we need more research to find why there are these differences between people, and it will help us to choose contraceptive methods wisely.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about starting an hormonal birth control, but is also trying to navigate dating or looking for a long-term partner in the process?
So my advice would be to make decision with full awareness, or both physical and awareness on both physical and emotional aspects of the methods. If someone in the early stage of a new relationship or actively seeking for seeking a long-term partner, it may be helpful to start with a short acting methods like the pill, so they can evaluate the effects, and then they can see the mood changes and relationship aspects, and they can decide to continue it or discontinue it. So tracking any emotional or sexual changes can help a person decide that the method is good for them or not.
And
Yeah.
lastly, before we end, is there anything else you'd like to add that people often overlook when it comes to how birth control might affect their personal relationships?
So I think hormonal contraceptives can affect mood, energy, desire, confidence, and even how connected to or distant someone feels in a relationship. This doesn't mean these methods are bad or should be avoided. They have been empowering and life changing for many, but it does mean that we should treat uh, mm, treat them as more than tools for pregnancy prevention. And I can say science keeps changing and growing. And while we already know that hormonal birth control has a lot of benefits, new research, like this research you mentioned in your questions, help us understand things better than previously we understand, and make smarter and wise choices.
Thank you so much for all the information that you gave us. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here. And
Wow, that interview really put things into perspective. I mean, it's one thing to read stats, but wow, just hearing that in real life, I mean, that was really powerful.
it was truly beautiful.
Yeah, and it made us realize how many people were totally unaware that birth control can even affect who they're attracted to.
Honestly, we didn't even know before we started this either. It's not something that's covered in the usual conversations around birth control.
Yeah, totally.
And as guys, we're usually not included in these conversations, but we should be. Relationships are a two-way thing, and understanding this can help both people communicate better.
It's not about blaming birth control or making assumptions. It's about being aware of how biology can intersect with emotions and attraction.
We learned a lot about being curious, and I hope you guys did too.
So to wrap it up, birth control does more than just prevent pregnancies. It might also be subtly shaping attraction and relationship dynamics in ways we're only just beginning to understand.
The science is still evolving, but it's definitely worth talking about. I mean, whether you're using it, dating someone who's using it, or just simply want to understand your biology, it's 100% a conversation that's worth having.
It truly is, and I'm glad we're having it on this podcast.
Thanks for tuning in and joining us on this episode of Sexual Selection and the Age of Birth Control.
So stay informed, stay educated, and maybe next time you think about birth control, think past the medical side.
Hey, we'll see you next time.